You're listening to Experience This, a show about the emerging experience economy with your host, Tom Young.
Hey, hi, everybody. Hey, welcome to the show. Let's go around the room here.
Hey, it's Karen Bajwa.
Hey, and Sean Newman.
Great. Hey, we're sitting here at the rooftop lounge on the top of the Eugene apartment building here in Hudson Yards. And we're recording. We're overlooking the Hudson River, a beautiful spring day.
Very nice.
It's very nice out today. Mm-hmm. The topic we were going to talk to today, a lot have to do with our digital series around social and how that's playing out, is we're going to talk about dating apps.
Ooh.
And what prompted us to talk about this was, you know, there's been a proliferation of dating apps for the last 15 years or so and they've been progressively, there's a lot more of them. But Facebook recently announced that they're getting into this game with trying to capitalize on the fact that more and more people are socializing through these dating apps. So for people who aren't really familiar with some of these apps, like I'm sure people have heard of, they've seen TV commercials for eHarmony, which is one of the older ones.
Yeah.
If I said Match, I think Match is old, right?
Plenty of Fish.
Plenty of Fish, Tinder.
Yeah.
They've almost become part of the lexicon of, you know, people talking about these different things. So tell me a little bit about where this market stands today. Like, what are people doing?
I think based on all of the research that we've been doing, it seems like most of the folks are on Tinder.
Yeah, I think it was, at least for me, you know, going through like college, it seemed like almost every single person had one. So it was just
Tinder or had an app?
Just had a Tinder. That was like the thing.
I think that was, the big thing.
That was the big thing. And I think but that was back a couple of years ago now. So it's changed since there's so many now. Tinder was one of the first one that really took storm for younger kids, because it was more of like a hookup app versus a whole dating thing.
Right.
And
the vernacular on hookup I learned recently was, I used to use it to mean let's meet, and apparently it's
let's meet.
It's more of a
let's do a little more than
it's
meeting.
a sexual congress.
Yes.
So, anyway, so tell me a little bit. So you went to Rutgers, right, Sean?
Yep, Rutgers and
and so people were using it. And what percentage of your social life in college? I mean, what years did you go to college?
2010 to 2015.
So you're a little. I mean, it's not recent, but you were there in the last 5 years.
Yep.
What percentage of your social life came from that versus what we would call more traditional ways of meeting somebody on your dorm floor, or meeting somebody at a party, or a friend of a friend, or at a wedding, or something like that?
So when I was there, actually, Tinder was just starting to take off, and it was probably by my second or third year. So I wasn't too big on it. I downloaded it. I put a profile, but I wasn't really using it seriously. So it was much more going out and like meeting friends, and through friends meeting girls.
And I had talked to a lot of people, because I was living in the city at the time, and so I had a lot of friends who had started using Tinder.
Right.
And I think the big conversation was, well, it's great because you can put a bunch of feelers out there and then see if, any of them matriculate into something. So for that, it was good.
The other downside is when you're in college, it's so much easier to meet people. I have people all in my dorms, and like you go out to bars and stuff. It's so easy to just talk to anyone because you're students. You easily have something to relate to. Like, oh, you study same major as me, same class, whatever, blah blah blah. It's as soon as I got out of college that like the dating apps became more relevant in my life, because now it's like, okay, now I'm just by myself. All my friends have moved, and now this is a way to start meeting new people.
So Karen, we talked about this notion that the digital platforms that we use, the light squares, whether it be the computer screen, the TV, the iPhone, cell phone, any kind of smart device that's capturing your attention. These light squares are very intoxicating in terms of their attention. They drive it, and we've talked a lot about that. But then it also has this notion of isolation. It isolates you.
Yeah, completely.
So now I have this device that's isolated me, and now I'm using the same device to try to drive a connection.
Exactly.
And I want to ask you guys this question, because to me it seems like if I think of an old way of meeting somebody, I'm meeting somebody through my existing social network. It could be at work, it could be friends of friends, etc. When I meet somebody that way and bring them in, there's more of a natural fit because that person brings their social circles and you have your social circles, and if you connect, if all the social circles are disparate and separate, it makes it very hard to connect, and people feel, I'm going to speculate, people feel pulled out of their old social networks, and it's almost set up for an unnecessary set of tension at the outset. Is that fair? For sure.
Yeah, and there's a couple so if you look at natural ways that people will meet, it's often not like, let's just two strangers go on a date and then try to make something happen from there. It's much easier when it's like, okay, two social circles and they interact a couple times. So you seen someone a couple times already. Right. You're more comfortable with them. You're comfortable with their friends. They're comfortable with your friends, or like,
right.
And then it's much easier to progress from there, because you're already comfortable with each other. Starting just bare, with where I don't know anything about you and you don't know anything about me, and then we'll just meet and then hope things go well. It's not, it's not always successful. It's not as easy to be successful.
But so I think the interesting thing that these apps have done are each of them have taken a slightly different angle on how to connect people. So Hinge, which, correct me if I'm wrong,
is that one of the newer ones?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't even know what the number of total apps that we're up to now, by the way, because I think there's probably over 10 in this space.
Way more.
But so Hinge is about connecting groups of people, isn't it? Within your.
It used to be like that. Hinge was they would take friends of your Facebook and friends of friends from Facebook, and they would match you with them, and they would tell you who your friends, your mutual friends are, your commonality friends, or second degree friends are.
Oh, see that to me makes sense.
That's going along with your idea of like connecting these.
Now we have a natural
Exactly.
connection. Like if I meet somebody at work, we have mutual acquaintances and mutual friends. If I meet somebody at church, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I meet somebody in town, a neighbor, we have a connection through the town.
Exactly.
So at least you can anchor off of that.
Yep. And there's been a couple of times I've had friends that came to me and said, "Oh, like, do you know this person? I matched with them," and it showed as like a mutual friend. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I met them in Italy actually," and that was one story of it. But there's plenty of times where you can easily get a vouch for the person. Just through the friends that they listed. I don't know why, but they got rid of that feature, so it's no longer like that.
But I wonder, sometimes do people want to meet a brand new set of strangers? I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's something exciting about going to a new city and starting over and having the ability to just meet brand new people, or having the option of opting into your existing social network.
So it's funny you mention that, because that is the overwhelming people that actually are receptive and like actually use the app are people that have just moved to the town or just moved to this area, because you have people that have like come, like foreigners or people that have just moved to the city that don't have a social network yet, and they'll use these dating apps just to make new friends or
to me that feels like there's a natural affinity to not only meet somebody and get into a relationship that way, but also join their other circles of networks, because I'm a transplant and I don't have any new networks locally, so I'm willing to go do that. And but if I bring all those things to the table, it seems like there's an odd tension. And I think when Kieran, you talked about this notion of having the excitement of just doing new stuff. There's the joke of this is just the hookup app where people are just meeting for casual sex, and then there's the people who are looking for their next spouse, and everything in between.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about that? I mean, it probably varies by age group, I assume, right?
Probably varies by age group and maybe to some degree by sex.
Yeah.
And by the app too. It definitely varies by that too. There's some that are, taking a little more serious.
Well, yeah, because the barriers to, I guess the entry criteria on some of the apps is a bit more rigorous. So I think if you look at the spectrum of the apps, Tinder is probably perceived most as easy to set up a profile and then swipe right, swipe left.
Yep.
And people aren't really finding fulfilled connections. I mean, historically, I don't know what the perception is now of the app. And then you kind of move it into Bumble, which empowers women to take the first step. And now you move a little bit more to the right, which are apps we were chatting about, which actually require you to take some time and really set up your profile.
Yeah, Hinge is like you have to answer these 3 questions, you have to whole profile ready, and
eHarmony was that way.
Yeah, eHarmony similar.
I mean, there's I don't it's can be potentially hundreds of questions if you fill out a whole psych profile. Now, I don't know if it's all BS, but they're supposed to match you with somebody who you're psychologically and profiled to match.
Right.
Well, and I guess to some degree it's, so how serious are you about taking time to set up your profile about the process, right? I think that's what they're probably trying to qualify.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know I haven't looked at have you guys looked at the statistics of success rates here? I mean, both of you come from an Indian heritage, and I look in stark contrast to Western culture. A decent amount of Indian families have arranged marriages.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that.
But the divorce rate is very low for arranged marriage.
It's a mixture of things for that. There's also a huge such a social taboo to divorce. Yeah. In the culture, so I'm sure the divorce rate would be the same, if not maybe plus minus, if that taboo was gone.
And I think the other really critical factor in this is when couples get married in Indian culture, it seems as if the families are actually getting married. So anytime you utter the words, "This might not be working out," the families intervene right away. So it's a little bit of a longer process to go from, I'm not sure if this is working out, to actually signing divorce papers. There's a lot of folks that are going to intervene.
That, and there's just like, you go into the mentality usually of like, okay, we're in this forever. Whatever problems we have, we're just going to work through it. Like, we have no other alternative. And when you have that mindset, it's less easy to just cop out and just divorce or something, you know?
But if you think about now the dating apps in India, matchmaking is going on continuously. I mean, there are, women that
are there the equivalent of a Tinder in India?
I'm not sure.
It seems countercultural to me.
Yeah. Most of the matchmaking is done. It's hilarious. Some of it's done through newspapers. So putting an ad out.
But there is also an app that is just for Indians, which is funny because I just went to a wedding where a couple met on this Indian dating app, and they're very successful. I mean, they seem very happy. Yeah. And the app actually put out a video. Like, they told the app that we're getting married through your app, and they paid for this whole like montage video of the couple together, and they gave it to them for free because it's good to have success stories.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's happening in India, but
well, when I step back and look at it, regardless of the app, there's this notion of swipe right, which I guess people now have come to. It's become a sort of in the lexicon of cultural communication. Swipe right with that one. Mm-hmm. But it also seems like it's extremely superficial. Yeah. That I'm going to make a decision as to whether or not I would want to be with this person or whatever.
But think about if you're in a bar and you want to talk to someone, right? What are you judging them on?
Yeah, I would be more along the lines of, a lot of people meet their spouses through work.
Yeah. Or through friends.
And I would even say, you would say a lot of illicit affairs happen through work. And it comes from familiarity of being in proximity to somebody for a stressful period of time or for a long period of time and getting to know each other, and that drives the attraction versus something purely physical, which would be looking at a small picture on a smartphone and swiping right or left.
Yeah, so it would actually be interesting then to see, and we'll probably look it up, the stats on swiping right and swiping left, and how many of those have led to serious marriages, or relationships versus some of the ones where you're actually building a bit more of a deeper connection.
So I read some stories about this when we talked about doing this, and you have the agonizing decisions of swiping right and left, and then I read this one, the guy would just swipe right until he maxed out. It made no discriminating. You could have put a donkey on there and he would have swiped right. He's not even looking. He's just swiping right to see what pops back.
So there's this is funny. So there's plenty of like videos I've seen of like college kids that'll, like these engineering kids will make a machine that just like turns in a circle on the screen. So it just like continuously swipes right on every single profile. And I know why they do it. It's because, so as a guy, every time you swipe, right, there is probably, I would put it at like maybe 0.5% chance of you meeting them.
So
maybe
it's
even
a
less.
numbers game.
It's a pure numbers game because
meeting them in terms of actually physically.
In terms of actually, maybe even less.
It fizzles out.
Oh no. It would probably like point.
Wow.
It's very, very small. So the percentage goes up if you match. Mm-hmm. Then the percentage goes up if they actually respond to your message, right? Mm-hmm. Then the percentage goes up if they respond more than once or twice, right? And so it just keeps going. But even at the very, very end, it's still, I would say, less than 50%. It's that tough. So many barriers. You just say one thing wrong, one thing goes wrong, anything, and it's so easy just to move on to the next person because there's 1,000 other people.
But that is real isolation.
I know, it really is. It's demoralizing sometimes.
Yeah, but it's fake because if I know how to game the system.
Yeah.
So like, if I just do the engineering robotic swipe right, just to maximize my numbers. And then the woman says, "Why did you swipe right?" And you said, "I had a robot do it."
Yeah.
You're starting off on the wrong foot.
Well, you wouldn't say that.
No. So, but if then I have a canned response. So as I found you very interesting.
Yeah.
And I liked your third picture. I only have two. Well, I thought you had three, but maybe it was the second one. I really liked it. Just some BS thing. But you're creating this false set of constructs to get to that first meeting, and it just seems like you're starting off on the wrong foot, and it's not genuine, meaning that there's this huge fakery.
Oh, so
with the whole thing.
Yeah.
So nice segue to fakery. So eHarmony actually just put out this, they published this statistic which said 53% of the people lie on their online dating profiles. And so the type of lies are actually quite interesting. So for women, they're typically using older photos.
Yeah.
That make them look much younger and thinner. And for men, they're lying about their jobs in order to sound more successful.
Yeah. Sounds right.
So, you don't even know what you're actually going to get.
For sure.
Until,
So I always say, like, this sounds really, like, cruel and mean, but with the pictures thing. So my thinking is always, okay, a girl has 6 pictures she can put on her profile, right? She's obviously going to select the 6th best picture she has out of God knows how many pictures she's taken in the past year or 2 years. So, you're expecting it to be like that perfect, perfect angle, perfect, lighting, all of that. You can't expect exactly what you see. This is not gonna.
So Sean, how many? Give us an idea of a Tinder date you've been on. Or whatever. Are you on Tinder? Is that still doing that?
Yeah, I've been on Tinder.
So you've been on one recently? I know when we went to San Francisco.
We lost him for about a day.
Yeah, we lost you for almost a full day, right? You had a Tinder date.
Bumble date.
That was a Bumble.
That was a Bumble
look at
date.
you, man.
More successful.
Scoring on multiple platforms. All right, so just tell us how, that went. You swiped right at some point, and these are geo-fenced, so you're within some circle.
Right. So she was near my area. I can tell you the San Francisco one. That was so I swiped right, and the day before I had said, we're going out, and this was the night we went out from that dinner with Mike.
Right.
And I said, we're going to go out. Do you want to meet? And she's like, I'm in my PJs, whatever. I can't, but maybe tomorrow. So we were leaving the next day. So in the morning we were getting breakfast. I'm like, I'm at this bakery thing. If you want, you can come get a tea. And she's like, all right, I'm actually going that way to go to a farmer's market or something. And I can meet you after. And I said, sure. And she just ended up meeting up. And then, like, we didn't know anything about each other. It was incredibly awkward because she came and she saw you guys, like, nodding at me. And she thought I was super weird for, like, nodding at random people.
By the way, which is normal in Indian cultures because you're always accompanied by friends and family on dates.
Yeah. So. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So she didn't know what she walked into. But, but after that, we just started talking. And, you know, as I started getting to know her, it was like she was really cool. I told her she was like a nuclear physicist and just a lot of shocking stuff. She lived in Africa. She knows like 3 African languages. And, yeah, a lot of things I didn't expect. But, it turned out to be like a good connection. So I'm friends with her now. And if I ever go back or she comes here, we have...
So is it mutually discussed up front if this is going to be a good connection or if someone else is looking for something more? Because I feel like most of the females are probably looking for something a bit more serious typically than the guys are.
100%. So I'll say during the Bumble thing, there was plenty that I matched with that... there was actually a lot that I matched with that just asked like, oh, what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm just here visiting. That was it.
Gone.
Done. That was it. And that makes total sense. I have no problems with that. I understand. So they know that I'm just here traveling, just looking for a quick connection or like whatever. So it's not nothing. I couldn't be serious if I live in New Jersey.
So if I asked you what does LTR mean, do you guys know what that means?
Long-term
relationship.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I thought it odd that people would put that in their profile because we were talking about this before we started recording.
Yeah.
This notion, to me, the long-term relationship is a result, not a goal. And I just don't understand how you can put such a burden on a first meeting with a stranger and say, my goal is a long-term relationship. It is the outcome.
I agree with you, but there could be a goal that I'm going to try. I'll not even try. I'll give it an attempt. I'm open to it. Just be open to it. There are people that will come in that will say, I'm not open to a long-term relationship.
Right.
Those are the people that the group is trying to filter out.
To say LTR at the other end of the spectrum is hookups. They'll say, no hookups, LTR only, as if those are the only 2 outcomes.
Yeah.
Isn't there like a shit ton of stuff in between those 2 outcomes? Those 2?
But you're also then asking, I mean, there are some societal things that I think historically are in place, right? I mean, for many, many years, people have always thought about dating leading to a path of long-term relationship and marriage. I think that's been just a fundamental thing in society. And okay, so maybe if that shifts, which it can because of the whole landscape, I think, around dating is changing, then maybe LTR.
So the notion that I might have as a postmodern thinker, right, around this whole thing, which would be, let's meet and have fun. And I guess that's such a loaded term if I say that, but I mean it in the most literal sense. Let's just meet and see what happens. And if it's great and whatever happens, happens, and we both like it, you do it again, and then you keep doing it. And then if you do it 10 times, then you have a relationship. You do it for a year, it's a long-term relationship.
I'm willing to say if you actually explain it like that, the majority of people would be okay, or women on the other side would be okay with that. What they're not okay with is if, with you putting no chance on if we keep meeting and we're having fun, and you decide you just want to move on for no reason, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we also talk about time being a valuable resource.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people are also looking at this as, well, how much time am I actually putting into this process? And they want, so if you talk about results and goals.
I know it just sounds so.
I know. I mean, it does, but this is also the reality of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it feels like these digital tools are at some level compensating for the isolation that happens through digital. But I think it also is I think affecting, if I could make a macroeconomic, I think it's affecting demographics because marriage is being pushed out.
Yeah.
People are getting married later and having kids later.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Right? Definitely.
And I would say that this kind of digital dating culture, largely fed by these apps, is driving people to shop more before they buy. Is that fair?
Yeah, and one other, this is kind of a hilarious statistic that I just want to put out there. 48% of online relationships end through email or text, which is also hilarious because if you're meeting online, there's also a certain percentage of those relationships and those connections that are now ending online.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
I'm
I
surprised
find that,
it's not way higher. I would have guessed 90%.
Oh my God.
End through text.
Yeah.
Versus what, like a phone call?
What's the text?
I mean,
or in person?
Yeah, I don't know.
What's the text?
It's just not working out.
It's usually nothing.
Oh,
So it's
ghosting them.
Ghosting, yeah.
You know the term ghosting?
Is ghosting you just pretend they don't exist?
It's just you just don't respond.
Yeah.
It just fizzles out.
Yeah, you delete them from your paradigm.
Yeah.
So further feeding into the isolation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems odd. But at some level, we go back and look at some of our prior discussions in some of these podcast series, is that people are looking for something.
Yeah, they are.
And this wouldn't be such a hot market. Facebook wouldn't be launching a dating app if they didn't see this as being valuable to their business model. But I think it underlying it is driving this notion of people are missing something. And
it's a huge market for sure. The apps we've been talking about, there's one company called Match Group, and they own Tinder, OkCupid, Plenty of Fish, Match.com, Hinge. They own all of those. And they make $1.7 billion in revenue per year. It's like a $15 billion market cap.
I thought it was free.
Well, ads.
Ads, yeah. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. And there is premium for every single one of those services.
And what's the premium?
So Tinder would be unlimited swipes versus 50 per day. And there's
How do you get past 50 a day?
50 is like 5 minutes. If you're just doing this.
I guess if you're in a major city.
Yeah,
right?
if you're in a major city for sure, yeah. Plus there's all these other perks. You get the super like, and you get like the boost, which puts you on top of their profile.
Yeah, so I think at some level there's also this, I always looked at Instagram as I had this post out on Twitter around the 7 deadly sins, and then the digital tools that matched against each one of these things. But as you think through the notion of, like, say,
lust.
Well, not so much lust, but I would think Instagram is very closely linked to narcissism.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right. So it's and then people want likes because they want to be validated, right? And people get very upset if they don't get enough likes on their posts. Is that true? I mean, this is crazy to me.
And we need to do our next podcast on that whole
likes. But I mean, at some level, the matches are proxies for likes.
It's crazy. One time I was just sitting and my friend was introducing me to his new girlfriend that he met on Hinge, by the way. And this was the first time I met this girl. And we were just sitting at a coffee shop or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, do you have an Instagram?" And I'm like, yeah. And so and I was showing it to her so she could add me. And she just like, the first thing she did was she clicked on my profile, one of my pictures, and said, "Oh, 56 likes. That's not bad." And I was like, "What?" That's what you're looking at immediately from not even the picture. Just like she just looked right. How many likes did I have on it? And I'm sure she judged it. That's not my type of girl. I already knew that wouldn't work out with me.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy how much people are like infatuated by that.
Yeah, but I think there's I know there's some pathology, psychological pathology that's tied to this, and it doesn't feel. It feels. Let me just say, it doesn't feel right. It feels like this is. I know it's effective, and I know there's going to be lots of great stories of people finding their soulmates and getting married and all that kind of stuff. But it feels like, in general, it feels like a negative pathology socially that we're allowing a sort of a distortion to the way humans have historically interacted. And I'm sure there's some positives. I'm no doubt this isn't all one-sided, but it feels more negative than positive to me. And I can't put my finger on it. It feels that way to me. Yeah,
it just feels a little bit surface level.
Yeah, that's it. Surface, not substantive.
Yeah.
And again, I think it doesn't give you the chance, especially like I said at the outset, a lot of, people put out this notion of, I want a long-term relationship, no hookups. They put that burden on the first meeting. Well, that doesn't really give you a chance to
get to know somebody.
Yeah. I had an old boss who said, carrots never grow if you keep checking them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so you just got to let things go and leave them alone and just see how it goes. And then you'd make the decision, as opposed to on a blind date, but the first time I meet, it's like we're on our path to evaluating marriage. Like, I don't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That seems nuts to me.
Especially when you're meeting someone who's a complete stranger.
Right, because you don't know
nothing about them.
You two may get along fine, but then your family may hate them, or her family may hate you, or their
friends
they may like to. Their work may be in complete conflict to your work, or whatever it may be. That you like to travel, they don't like to travel. There's no way to know these things.
Yep.
Until you spend time together, and I guess you could fake it and just say, I'm for all the things you want. But it seems, again, to be a little disingenuous.
I think there definitely has to be a balance. So I think if you look at the dating culture here, it's definitely we're just dismissing people too quickly and not giving them a fair chance through some of the apps. If you look at Indian culture, in India, historically you would meet somebody maybe for a week and then you're arranged to be married to them. So I think there's between those two scenarios.
So in that, that's a little fascinating, we're a little off topic, but in that week, do you have the chance to veto?
Yeah.
Usually you do, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You do.
How often does a veto get invoked?
I guess if you met, I don't know. Okay, so they send you like a resume. So I guess if you were to get 13 resumes, and by the way, I mean, it's rapidly changing there every day as well. People are dating now. But in our parents' generation, if they got 10 resumes, they would probably proceed and down select 5 very quickly and then select 1. I mean, it was just from 10 to 5 to 1.
Like, what if your son or daughter was a troglodyte? How are you pairing them up?
What is a troglodyte? Do you know what a troglodyte is?
I have no idea what that is.
I'm sorry. It's like a 3-toed cave dweller.
Well, I think there's somebody for everybody.
Yeah, they'll find someone.
Yeah.
And and unfortunately, arranged marriage also led to a lot of mismatches. There were a lot of mismatched couples.
Okay. You could see the flaw immediately in that. There is no chance you could know anything worthwhile in 1 week from a person.
No, but you're relying on your family to make the choice for you because they know you and they care about you.
Yeah, but
and to me, the thing that fascinates me about the arranged marriage is that in Western culture, we've allowed advertising, modern media, even the way modeling tends to focus on the surface and what people look like and things like that, as opposed to more substantive matters that matter in long-term relationships. But then people have a false paradigm in terms of what they're looking for. But their friends and family, especially their family, knows better.
Yeah.
But even them, how does the friends and family know the other person?
But
they may know them really well, but they don't know the other person.
Well, what they're judging it on, though, is
that I think it's going to be a fit.
Yeah, and they think it's going to be a fit, and they know the family. So they've probably hung out with these families for the past 10 to 15 years in their social circle. So they imagine that this child being raised as a product of the family environment is probably, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. If that's what they believe in, they're probably assuming they've got a lot of the attributes of the parents.
My belief has always been, especially for Indian, they're very successful in marriages. If you're looking at just divorce rate, how long they've been together for sure, but I think a lot more has to do with the Indian culture than it does with the arranged marriages.
Yeah.
So where do we think this is going? Facebook is launching this. Are they going to put people out of business? I thought Facebook was feels like it's in decline.
I think this is their way to try to remain relevant and revive themselves a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a couple perks to it. One is, okay, so everyone has friends that they have a crush on. So this is the easiest way immediately just to
Is that what they're doing? They're doing which part of my people that I'm connected with that I want to go out on a date with?
Well, what's even hilarious is they've launched a feature called Secret Crush. So if you pick somebody in your network and say you have a secret crush on them, and that person also has labeled you as a secret crush,
they'll alert you. So you got 9 people to pick from.
Do they have like prohibitions in Arkansas where you can't do that with your siblings?
I don't know if they set any regulations on that.
I'm just kidding. I couldn't resist on that. That seems like I don't know.
I think they've got some kinks to iron out with that.
A lot of it's
I'm interested in hearing some wild stories from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But I definitely think for the future, it seems like online dating is probably just going to become more and more of
I think
the norm.
so too. I think online dating has it's skyrocketed already. There's some, I think for same-sex couples, it's how 70% of them meet now.
Wow.
So that 70% was completely, that's a huge transition because this isn't something that's been around for that long.
Yeah.
So
pretty wild. Well, let's keep an eye on this. I think, again, this is all part of our notion that people are seeking social and using digital tools. It feels like this one feels a little off to me. I get that it's popular. I get people are doing it, and I get that it has some level of effectiveness, but I still am a little concerned about this at a macro social level.
Yeah.
So, all right, great. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ian.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Karen, I think you were supposed to say that.
Yeah, thanks. I'll take it from here.
All right, well, we got to do this is the new Outcast.
Oh, the outro. The outro.
I think Outcast is a new word. All right, outro. We're doing a new outro. We got to cover a few things.
All right.
One is what? Subscription.
Do you subscribe through?
We want people to subscribe to this, not just listen to it occasionally.
Okay, yeah. Check us out.
The second thing is nothing's better than what? A 5-star rating.
Always 5 stars.
Got to give us the 5 stars because we get better search outcomes. And the last thing is comments.
We need those.
Yeah,
we need your feedback.
We want to know what people are thinking. So you can check us out. The best way to do it if you're not sure, some people don't know how to do it. Go to our website. You can check it out. We'll have a full set of instructions. So whatever app you're using. Most people use, what do you use, Karen?
I use Spotify.
You do?
Yeah.
So we have Spotify, we have iTunes, YouTube. There's a whole bunch. Whatever you use, we have it. And if we don't have it, let us know, and we'll try to figure out how to get it.
We can send you a paper-based instruction.
Actually, we do have paper-based instructions, even though that's a fun inside joke to our team. So anyway, Thanks for listening, and check us out on our next shows.
Thanks. See ya.